All right. Welcome, guys, to another lesson on the central nervous system. Today's lesson is chock full of information. Not a lot is tested in the exam, but we are not parrots, and we're not only memorizing facts, we are also here to learn as human beings. I especially think today's lesson will give you a little bit of an advantage in life where you can assist people who might suffer from disorders of the nervous system, that there's a little bit of understanding, because understanding something goes a long way. If we understand something, we no longer fear it. And if we understand, we know how to help. And then we are also going to look at the effect of drugs on your central nervous system. And I have some lovely brain images for you to show you exactly what the more oftenly used drugs do to your central nervous system. And then we will have a little Kahoot just to summarize all the work. And that's it. So welcome. Welcome. Good afternoon, Kale. You've got such lovely manners. I was just chatting to our lovely host, and we were talking about what a lovely bunch of students you are, well-mannered and eager to learn. So thank you very much for that. So today we are going to learn about multiple sclerosis. It's often abbreviated as MS, and we will also look at Alzheimer's disease. We will then learn a little bit more to injuries to your nervous system and the effects of drugs on your nervous system. And then we'll have our Kahoot show off, and we will compete with you. So, have you heard of Alzheimer's disease? Now, Alzheimer's disease covers a multitude of mental functions, especially memory. Now, there's a difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia. A lot of time when people get older, they get old age dementia, very similar symptoms to Alzheimer's, but it's not the same thing. We are also going to learn a little bit more about multiple sclerosis, and this is where the protective lining of the nerves is attacked by your own immune system. It's an autoimmune disease. I'll also mention epilepsy, because this is one that's very, very common. And again, all of these disorders, they're not diseases, they are disorders. All of these disorders can affect any gender, any race, and at any time. We'll also just quickly touch on Parkinson's disease just here. If you have watched Back to the Future, this Michael J. Fox is the actor in there, and he has Parkinson's disease, and he has been a spokesperson. So the more something comes to the forefront and the more people talk about it, the less weird it becomes. And people understand, so people don't stare. So actually we're going to go back. So epilepsy is when abnormal electrical discharges from your brain cause seizures. People can use medication for it, and it can be managed. Parkinson's disease, there's no cure yet, but it can be managed. So let's look at Alzheimer's disease. And if you have any questions throughout, please ask. I'm no expert, but I have done a lot of reading on this, and I've known someone who's had Alzheimer's disease, so I can talk a little bit more to it. So for Alzheimer's disease, it's a very long word, neurodegenerative. So if you break this word up, neuro refers to your nervous system, generative is to make something, so degenerative is if it breaks down. Neurodegenerative is your brain and your brain cells die very slowly. It's a disease, and it's I got the wrong word there. It's a disorder, and it's irreversible. Once you have it, you can't not have it. It's not like chicken pox where you can get a vaccination for it, or once you've had it, that you can't have it anymore. Once you have Alzheimer's, you will always have it, and it will slowly get worse and worse. No one really knows what causes Alzheimer's. In most cases, the first symptoms appear after the age of 60. So usually older people have symptoms, but it has been found in young people, and then it's called early onset Alzheimer's. Early onset starts early, Alzheimer's, and it has been seen in people as young as 40. Now, there's a difference between being forgetful and having Alzheimer's disease. So some of the symptoms are memory loss. And again, it's not the same as just being forgetful. You can't remember where you live or how old you are, where you grew up. It is profound memory loss. Confusion. People are usually quite confused. They don't know what is expected of them. If you've asked them to do a task, they won't know how to do something as simple as maybe brushing their hair, brushing their teeth, etc. And then they've got, as I say, difficulty completing very familiar tasks. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. You do eventually die from Alzheimer's. You eventually die, but you die with Alzheimer's. Usually it's in very old people. So you lose a lot of brain function. And because the people who have Alzheimer's are usually quite old, they sometimes die more of old age than of the symptoms. All right, so let's look at some brain imaging. All right, so since the neurons are injured throughout your brain and they die, the connections between the network of neurons may break down as well, and many brain regions begin to shrink. So a lot of times, Kyle, this is why you might die. You have blood clots, or it's because of the degeneration of very specific areas in the brain. But it's not like pneumonia or cancer where the disease kills you, and a lot of people die of old age. The final stage of Alzheimer's, brain atrophy. So atrophy is shrinking. Brain atrophy is widespread, causing significant loss of brain volume. Now, if you ever had a cast on your arm or a cast on your leg, you would notice that once that cast comes off after you've broken it, your muscles are very, very weak. That is atrophy. It's the beginning of atrophy. Your muscles become weaker. So the same for the brain. Your brain is not a muscle, but you've lost a lot of brain tissue, a lot of nerve tissue, and your brain shrinks a little bit. So on the left side, you see someone with a healthy brain. And remember, here are all the dendrites and here are all the axons. Now, someone who's got Alzheimer's disease, the brain shrinks. It becomes much, much smaller, and the ventricles fill with cerebrospinal fluid, so it becomes fluid filled, and your hippocampus is a part of your brain shrinks severely. So this is a comparison between a healthy brain and someone with late Alzheimer's. So this is not in the early stages of Alzheimer's. This is very late into the disorder when someone has it. It depends on where your brain atrophies, but usually it is more to do with body functions. If you can't remember how to do something, it can affect sight. You won't go blind, but it can affect your specific areas of your brain. So this is just another image. This is an MRI image. So this MRI image shows brain activity. So the more color you have, the more light red and green and yellow you have, the more active the brain is. The less color, the less active the brain is. So this is a normal person. This is someone with mild cognitive impairment. So there might be a little bit of brain damage here, especially in the central area. Here you see someone with Alzheimer's disease. Any questions on this image? If you want to learn more, in the slides, I've added the links to all the pictures. So you can go to the scientific articles, and they're all freely available to read, and they're quite interesting. Yes, the hippocampus is for memory. All right. Any other question about Alzheimer's before we go on? Any question about Alzheimer's? All right, let's go to MS, or multiple sclerosis. Now, MS is often referred to as multiple sclerosis is often referred to as MS, and this is a disease that is widely found throughout the world. It's again not specific to gender or race or culture group, and it can affect anyone, but the onset is usually between the ages of 20 and 40. So there are quite a few famous people with MS, and they're quite outspoken about it, which again has brought it to the forefront. People are no longer scared because there's a lot of information on it, and there's a lot of support for it. Now, for multiple sclerosis, it's an autoimmune disease. Your own immune system attacks the myelin sheath, covering the neurons, which prevents them from functioning properly. Now, remember I explained that myelin sheath is a little bit like the insulation tape around an electric cord. So if you don't have that myelin sheath, then the electrical impulse might not be transmitted as well, and a lot of it just disappears. So there's no cure for this disease, but the symptoms can be managed with medication. A lot of the symptoms is loss of balance, loss of speech and vision, because remember, anywhere where you need that impulse to be transferred, you will have difficulty. There's a lot of pain, memory loss, people struggle to walk, they will be off balance. Smaller things like bladder control might be a problem as well. Again, this is manageable with medication, but there is no cure. So these are just some images for MS, for multiple sclerosis. And again, you can see this is a healthy image, and this is the neuro image of someone with MS, with multiple sclerosis. You can see that there's a loss of brain tissue again, similar to Alzheimer's. That's why they have similar symptoms. But this is because that myelin sheath has been attacked and stripped away. And you also have loss of tissue and increase of the cerebrospinal fluid. This is the brain of someone with severe MS and severe MS. MS, you can have it on, it's on a scale. So you can have it with only a few symptoms, or you can be very symptomatic and you present all of the symptoms, or quite a few of the symptoms. People also have good days and bad days where it's more manageable, and then they will go into a phase where it's not. And I'm quickly just reading your question here. Right, I'm quickly going to go back a few slides to Barney, and then Carl Henry, I'll explain to you what happens with your grandfather's eyelids. Just tell me when I need to stop. So what might be with your grandfather is that as we grow older, we just lose muscle tissue. Now, your eyelids have tiny little ocular muscles in that control them. But I'll go do a little bit of research. I'm no doctor or expert, so I can't tell for sure. But if he's been to a doctor or an optometrist, so people who test your eyes for vision, they might be able to help him better. All right, is this where it should be, Ronnie? Right, I'm going to slowly start going forward again. So again, this is someone as an MRI scan, comparing the two Remember, the more it lights up, the more brain activity there is. This is MS. And those are the scans for MS. Right, now we get to brain injuries, and these are quite common, especially with high impact accidents. Most of these are caused by vehicle accidents, so when you are in a motor car accident. It can also be if you have a direct trauma to the head, so you fall or you were tackled very hard on a hard surface. Most of these come from motor vehicle accidents. So brain injuries can affect movement, memory, and speech, but it depends on the area of the brain that is injured. In severe cases, they may lead to long-term mental health issues. So it depends on the area of the brain where the trauma is, and it also depends on the severity of the trauma. A damaged spinal cord could result in paralysis and the inability to move or feel anything below the point of injury. So as I've explained before, if it is below your neck, or your neck and below, then you are a quadriplegic. You won't have movement or full movement of both your arms, both your legs. And if your injury is below your ribcage, then you'll only be a paraplegic. So you won't have full movement or any movement of your legs. There's a lot of, you can rehabilitate and try and get some muscle structure back, but there's a lot of things done for people who have been in accidents and who are paralyzed. You can still participate in sport, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair athletics where you race each other, cycling. So this is not a death sentence, it's just an adjustment. There is no way to regenerate nerve tissue. There has been studies done with stem cells, but nothing is conclusive. Nothing has been conclusive. So medical researchers claim that stem cell therapy may be used in the future for things like MS or Parkinson's, but it's only a claim. It's not, there's no proof yet, but this opens up the area of research. So if you want to go study a BSc next year, this would be a very good area to pay attention to then. Okay, let me just see. I think there's some questions here. Oh, thank you. That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful if you could pass on the results of your gran. And then we can all learn something. So, how can traumatic brain injury, and this is abbreviated TBI, traumatic brain injury, not TMI. This is more than enough information. We need this, affect our daily life. So, if your frontal cortex is damaged, then you'll have problems with concentration, speech, problem solving. Remember, I also told you this is the last part in a teenage brain that develops. And when you use a lot of drugs, which we will look at next, this is the area that is damaged often. Then you have your parietal area. This is the little green one. This is touch, pain, and temperature. Your occipital lobe is healthy eyesight. Temporal lobe is memory. Your cerebellum is coordination and balance. And your brainstem is breathing, heart rate, the life-sustaining systems. Now, if you have brain injury, you'll have lack of focus, you might have inability to speak or inability to grasp language words. If it's the parietal, then you might not be able to read. You will have blind spots or blurred vision if your eye area, the occipital lobe, is attacked. Then if there's the temporal lobe, you have short-term memory. Your cerebellum is difficulty walking or slurred speech. You won't have balance. And if your brainstem is damaged, there will be changes in breath or difficulty swallowing. if the traumatic brain injury is severe enough in your brain stem, then they declare you brain dead. So if someone has a severe brain injury, then that person will no longer have a quality of life, nor will they be aware. All right, so let's look at this one. We've done this question before, but it's a very good one to look at brain injury, and it is a very applicable, especially in a country where we are very sporty. So this is an American, it's from the Wikipedia, and it is the Atlantic, which is an American newspaper. So the football is not soccer, it is American football, where they tackle each other all the time. So a link between concussion and brain damage. In 2002, a former American football player was found dead in his truck. The doctor who handled the autopsy, so an autopsy is after you die and they don't know why you died, the pathologists need to do a study to see why you have passed away. And a pathologist is a doctor that has specialized in either identifying diseased tissue or doing autopsies. Discovered that the football player had severe brain damage and that his death was caused by repeated blows to the head or repeated concussions. He called this disorder chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Encephalopathy, that's a lovely word to say. So anytime you see the word ensa, it refers to the brain. A more recent study was conducted which involved the brains of 165 people who played football in high school, college, or at professional level. The study found evidence of CTE in 131 of the brains. So the part affected by CTE is the cerebrum. Whenever they ask anything with the cerebrum, you can always state memory or reasoning. So, but there are more. So state two possible symptoms. State two possible symptoms of CTE in the cerebrum. What do you think might have happened? Yes, the ear controls how and why you balance. We'll learn more about that in 2 weeks' time. So, come on. Why is the brain, if the cerebrum is affected, what happens? We just looked at the cerebrum. Let me quickly go back. Have a look there. This is the cerebrum. So everything that is above the cerebellum is the cerebrum. Quickly have a quick look and tell me two things, two possible symptoms of having CTE. Two possible symptoms. All right, memory loss. Yep, that's always a good guess. Okay, so it's memory loss, lack of movement, you struggle to control your motor movements, you can't remember how to do simple actions similar to Alzheimer's, you don't know, you can't reason, and decision making becomes very difficult. Give me one way in which your brain is protected by the, okay, there's one way that your brain is protected. How is your brain protected? Yep, the skull. That is the simplest one to always mention, the skull. So your skull, you also have three membranes called the meninges. They protect your brain, and then you also have cerebrospinal fluid that protects your brain and absorbs all the shock. And the last one, explain why CTE does not usually affect essential life processes like breathing or heart rate. And I'll quickly go back again. Remember, this is the area that affects breathing and heart rate. So why is CTE not usually associated with breathing or heart rate? Which area in the brain is responsible for that? So it's usually not damaged during traumatic brain injuries. I see there's one answer here. Well done, Cal. You've got it right. It's your brainstem, all right? It's your brainstem. Well done. So your brainstem is connected to the cerebrum, but if the brainstem is damaged, you will have problems with breathing and heart rate. Your brainstem is closer to the area of your neck. So if you put your hand on the back of your neck, between your shoulders and your skull, just at the nape of your neck, that is where your brainstem is, and it's quite protected. So traumatic brain injuries is usually to the top or the side of your skull, and that's why your cerebrum is affected more often than your brainstem. All right, so here we see the answers. All right, then we've got our next topic. Now, this is not for the exam. All the others were examinable, and what they'll do is they'll give you a reading piece, or they will just ask you in a multiple choice question about Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis or traumatic brain injury. Drugs is not examinable, but it is good to know and arm yourself with knowledge so that you can make healthy choices. Knowledge is power. Now, yesterday we learned a little bit about the synapse and neurotransmitters. So that is usually where drugs cause your nervous system to be affected. So drugs change the way in which impulses are transmitted in the central nervous system. Now remember, you have a synapse, and in between the synapse, the axon and the dendrite, you have neurotransmitters. So it affects how quickly or slowly the neurotransmitters can pass across the gap in the synapse. Remember, the impulse needs to be transferred with the neurotransmitter. The dendrite and the axon never ever touch each other. So depending on the drug, so either marijuana or ecstasy or heroin or tic, it either speeds up or slows down the process of the neurotransmitters moving an impulse along. And so it either affects your sympathetic or your parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I don't know if you've heard before of uppers and downers. So uppers will affect your sympathetic, and parasympathetic would just be the opposite. So you either become hyper aware or you become really chilled out and relaxed. The problem, however, is those neurotransmitters are affected, and it is irreversible sometimes. Brain imaging shows people with addictions, shows physical changes in the area of the brain that are critical for decision making, learning, and memory. These changes can explain why people that get addicted are very compulsive. So this is just some imaging for you. This, again, you don't need to memorize, but just to show you how the different addictions affect the brain, and it is the receptor in between. So as you can see, there's a lot less activity in all of the areas of the brain. So not only is the neurotransmitters affected, it also affects your brain tissue. Again, that's just informative, so you don't have to study that, but it does help making good decisions one day. If your brainstem is injured, they sometimes do ask that if you would like to turn the machines off. A lot of times people that are, the brain stems are injured, they are ideal organ donors. They are ideal organ donors because the organs aren't damaged, but the person's brain is no longer functioning to support life. So there we go. Does that answer your question? I hope. All right, so now we're going to go to our favorite part of the day, where we look at how much we remember, if our cerebrum is working properly. And if it doesn't, if you can't remember, sometimes we need to do things a few times before those neural pathways are created. Remember, I told you in the beginning, if you juggle, you can actually grow brain tissue because of all those nerve pathways you make, the new ones. So it takes time to remember things. So if you've just heard of something the first time today, don't stress about it. So we are going to switch to Kahoot. And the Kahoot we're going to look at, there is the code. We will type the code in the chat for you. We'll type the code in the chat for you, and you can go to Kahoot. Right, guys, so our host, Miss Mel, is participating with us. And I know that she is competitive and she has not had life science, so she's only been exposed to the lessons you have. So let's see how it goes. I'm rooting for you, ma'am. I know you'll do well. And if anything, guys, there are only 4 questions. Eliminate the ones you know is not true. Right, let's start. We've got quite a few questions, but I know we can do it. This is a revision of all the work. All right, take a guess if you don't know. The autonomic nervous system. Auto, the word auto should give you a clue. Auto, automatically. There we go. So autonomic happens automatically. It's your heart rate, your breathing, peristalsis, all those things you can't control. That is the autonomic nervous system. So the sympathetic, remember, scared. You're scared of the snake. It's sympathetic. What is not true? Not true. If you see, remember, heart rate is autonomic. If you see a snake, you're scared. That's the sympathetic nervous system. If you don't know, eliminate the ones that you think it can't be. If you don't know, eliminate the ones that it can't be. All right, so your brain contains the most nerves of your body, your brain. Let's see what the others were. Now, remember I said sympathetic, you're scared. So it is a part of the autonomic nervous system. You can't control your heart rate. So that one is correct. The result includes an increase in heart rate. It does, because if your sympathetic is activated, you're scared of the snake, yes, your heart rate goes faster. And then it does stimulate adrenaline, the adrenaline response. The fight or flight hormone is adrenaline. So the only one that it couldn't be was the nerves in the body, and the brain has got the most nerves in the body. Lots and lots and lots of tissue. So again, the autonomic nervous system, you cannot control. You cannot control. Well done, guys. Digestion. You cannot eat a hamburger and tell your stomach, please digest it now, hydrochloric acid, please don't be released. You have no say in digestion. You can decide to walk, you can decide to talk, and then all of the above cannot be, because then all of these, you have no choice in digestion. So autonomic, no choice. It happens automatically. Again, sympathetic, you're scared. Sympathetic, you're scared. Or stressed. Well done, guys. I am so proud. Sympathetic is the fight or flight response, all right? It makes you, so it can make you run, but that's not what it does. It causes your body to respond to the fight or flight. Well done, Shalom. Answer streak of 4. You are on fire. This system controls everything you do. The olfactory is your smell system. Your endocrine are hormones. Important, but maybe not that important. So remember, olfactory is your smell, your sense of smell. Endocrine is just the hormones. Respiratory is breath. And nervous system is all the nerves and your brain. All right. It is the nervous system because your brain controls everything you do. So part of the nervous system is your central nervous system. Oh, Kyle, I think we'll fix it for you. I'll try and do it next time. Oy, oy, oy. So let's see how far we can go. Without a nervous system, you couldn't walk, breathe, think, all of the above. If you did not have a brain, that is part of your nervous system. Yeah, well done. I would have been very worried if you said anything else but all of the above. So the peripheral nervous system is not the brain. There's a clue. Not the brain. Well done, guys. It's just the nerves. Just the nerves. The peripheral nervous system is not the brain. It's just your nerves. You have two systems, the central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord, and then you have all your nerves. So the nerves, peripheral nervous system. Your veins are part of your vascular system. Your nerves are part of your vascular system. So I think we'll answer up to 10, and then tomorrow, if you would like, we can do the other 10. All right, so this is the action potential is well done, guys. It's the axon. The axon is the part of the nerve that transmits the impulse. Oh, Miss Mel, I think you listened very well. All right, this one I'm going to skip because we don't have to do that one. We have not studied that. That is university work. All right, which of these functions are part of the parasympathetic system? Remember I said parasympathetic? Paradise, you are chilled and relaxed. You are chilled and relaxed. Paradise, parasympathetic. So look at the ones that can't be, and then you decide which ones. Well done. Well done. So it controls the body while at rest. So parasympathetic, that system is when you are at rest, when it's like paradise, parasympathetic. Sympathetic is when you're stressed. Parasympathetic is when you are relaxed. So when you are at rest, it can't be all of the above because you can't be stressed and under threat and relaxed. And it can't be with homeostasis and the autonomic functions, because you can choose to walk and you can choose some of the things in the parasympathetic. So it's when the body is at rest. All right, we have run out of time. So, oh, Kyle, so we can do this mañana in the morning. Let me quickly check. We've run out of time, so now it's time for questions. And we have 10 questions left on this Kahoot. So is it okay if we continue tomorrow with this Kahoot? If you log out, we will just redo the first 10. You will ace it because you know all the answers now, and then we'll do the next 10. Is that fine with you? Can we redo this Kahoot? Run through the first 10, and then we do the last 10 as part of our revision tomorrow. Just show me a thumbs up or something if that's fine with you. You remember I said you have to do something more than once for that brain to remember it. So this is just part of the memory process, is repeating something over and over again. Sharp. We will redo this Kahoot then. And for the first 10, I know you'll all do very well. Then it's just about the fastest fingers. All right, guys. I know, but tomorrow, I don't know, tomorrow, guys, do you think our host, Miss Mel, I think we should compete. We should compete just to see how much memory older people have. You know, you guys are young. You guys are young. All right. So is there any question you have on Alzheimer's or MS? Anything on Alzheimer's or MS? Maybe about drug use in the brain? It is irreversible, the damage caused by Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis. Stem cell engineering or genetic engineering is hopefully in the future something that people can rely on. But for now, it's symptomatic. We treat the symptoms. We don't treat the disorder or the disease, we treat the symptoms only. And if you meet someone with MS or you meet someone with Alzheimer's, lots of patience and lots of understanding, because they can genuinely not help it. All right. Well, guys, if you have no other questions, I will chill here for a little bit. You're welcome to leave. If we see there's no questions or you've left all of us on our own some lonesome, we'll end the class. and I'm waiting to hear about your grandfather. And I will hope that it's good news. That it's I hope that it's fine. I hope that